and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the president for the Urban League of Greater Richmond Young Professionals. I just want to extend our hand and just say thank you all so much for being out with us on an evening that is going to be very impactful and very informative. Just wanted to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items. I don't want to be before you too long because this is a night for the constituents and your questions and with our candidates and their visions for the city of Richmond. So quick housekeeping items. When you step out these doors, to your left, you will have the men's bathroom available for you. On the right, you will have the women's bathroom available for you. And just moving a little bit forward, I wanted to acknowledge a couple of people. So if you were on the planning committee for this event, would you please stand up? I'd like to thank the Richmond NAACP, the National Council of Negro Women, the Metro Richmond National Panhellenic Council, the Substance Abuse and Addiction Recovery Alliance of Virginia, as well as your host for this evening, the venue, Virginia Union University, because it took a lot of effort in order to make this event come to fruition. Now, one last piece that I'll leave you with before introducing our guest moderator. The Urban League of Greater Richmond Young Professionals, as well as our affiliate, the Greater Richmond, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization committed to advancing economic and social justice for African Americans and underserved communities. As such, the Urban League of Greater Richmond does not endorse candidates, political parties, or participate in partisan activities during elections. Our mission is to empower communities through education, advocacy, and economic empowerment programs, irrespective of political affiliations. We remain steadfast in our commitment to serving as a voice for equality, justice, and opportunity for all, and we encourage individuals to engage in the electoral process responsibly and in accordance with their own beliefs and values. So with that being said, without further ado, I would like to bring forward our guest moderator, a very close friend of mine and advocate for this city as well as many places. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Victor McKenzie.
Good evening. There we go. Once again, my name is Victor McKenzie, and I have the honor of serving as moderator for this evening. I want to express a deep gratitude to all of our partner organizations who have worked so diligently over the last weeks and months to put this event together. Secondly, I want to thank you all for coming on out, because it sure ain't cool outside. Civic engagement is the cornerstone for our democracy. The more we are informed, the more we are engaged, the better decisions we can make. And so that is our hope for tonight. And lastly, to our candidates for stepping up, throwing your name in the hat, and hoping for the opportunity to lead us all. So please give them a round of applause. My ask for you tonight is to listen intently to the answers and solutions that the candidates provide, their willingness to collaborate, and for that spark of inspiration that can help lead us all. And now for tonight's format. Each candidate will have 1 minute for introductions. I ask that you wait until everyone has been introduced to clap. Tonight is broken into 5 sections with a few questions in each. This is a forum, not a debate, so there will be no rebuttals. Occasionally, I may ask a follow-up just for clarity. All questions, as Tyrone has mentioned, have been submitted by the community. We have done our best not to alter these, except for minor clarifications. No candidates have been provided these questions in advance. And lastly, we cannot hope to cover all things in this one forum. It is our hope that this is just the start of many conversations across the city and that you bear with us. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Andreas Addison for introductions.
Good evening, everyone. I am Andreas Addison. For the last 16 years, I've been showing up every day to make the city stronger better, and more equitable for everyone. During my 8 years as an employee, my work in combating the effects of poverty and building community wealth helped me turn an entry-level position into a nationally recognized leader in government innovation. During my 2 terms on council, I helped increase funding for RPS by $88 million. We built 4 new schools and increased average teacher pay by $15,000. We went from filling potholes to paving 80% of our streets. We went from fixing transit to now having one of the best bus rapid transit routes in the country and fare-free access for everyone. We now have a $1 billion operating budget and a AAA bond rating. Still, many say that Richmond is great despite itself, and as our broken city hall is often in the headlines for the wrong reasons and in the process in the way of change. We need a mayor with experience, vision, and a plan to make this city work for everybody. I am running to be Richmond's next mayor to build on these successes and to use my experience to make sure it works for everyone and everyone sees their future in the city, future of the city. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. My name is Danny Avula. You all think it's hot now. Just wait till we get into this. No, Victor has been very clear. This is a forum, not a debate. I moved to Richmond to go to medical school in 2000, and I never left because I fell in love with this city. We decided to stay here for residency, my wife and I, in 2004, in real pursuit of Martin Luther King's beloved community, moved into the East End of Richmond to live in communities where people of different races and classes would live together and build relationship together. And so we've done that for 20 years. My wife has taught at Chimborazo Elementary. We've have 5 kids in our family, all of who have gone to Richmond Public Schools. I served as the public health director here for many years. And during that time, as a pediatrician and public health director, working to improve the health of individuals and families and improve health and well-being for the city at large, I recognized that health is just one aspect of that well-being. That public health and well-being really is about economic investment, about safe communities, about beautiful park space, about the ability to get around a community even if you don't have access to a car. And so that's why I'm running for mayor, because I have the heart and desire to ensure that every resident of this community thrives and that we invest across all of those different domains to make Richmond the kind of place that we can all be proud of.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Mosby, and I'm running for mayor because I absolutely love our city. I love the people of Richmond. I'm excited about how far Richmond has grown from the arts, the culture, the history, the food, and the beverage scene. But I'm equally as excited about how far she can grow with us together. You did hear me say she. My priorities have been consistent. As a resident of Richmond, a Richmond business owner, a realtor who has sold homes throughout the Richmond metropolitan area, a former council representative and president of council, serving to help our justice-involved community reacclimate back into the community, creating a Richmond that works for all of us, because that's what I do. So today, I ask that you listen to hear, and you hear to listen, and then you choose a leader who is experienced and proven effective that will work for you and work with you. I'm Michelle Mosby, and I'm running for mayor, and I'm asking you not to wait till November 5th, but September 20th. I'm asking you to cast your vote. Thank you.
Good evening, Richmond. I'm Maurice Neblett, and I'm here to ignite a new era for our great city. With the foundation of criminology and criminal justice from the great VUU, I bring a deep understanding of the challenges we face. But more importantly, I bring solutions rooted in accountability, transparency, and community empowerment. Imagine a Richmond where safety is paramount, education is a world-class, and every citizen's voice is heard. Together, we can make this vision a reality. Let's transform Richmond into a beacon of collective care and happiness. I'm here to make the vision a reality. And with you, we will make one Richmond, one choice, and one transparent city for our progression. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Virginia Union for hosting us this evening, and the Urban League and the other sponsors of tonight's get-together. Thank you very much. My name is Harrison Rodet, and I am so excited for the race for mayor this year. We have such a clear choice in front of us. We should be looking for a mayor who can earn the trust of Richmond residents to move Richmond forward with the change that we need. And I hope to earn that trust. I grew up in Henrico County, and my first job was right here in Richmond, working for Senator Tim Kaine, who shows us that listening is the foundation of public service. I spent many years in the private sector helping lead large organizations, working collaboratively with thousands of people to generate change. And in the last 5 years, I've been focused on investing in our community here in Richmond, partnering with small business owners to level the playing field for access to capital, because opportunity is what matters for our residents. I look forward to this campaign season and earning the trust of people here, and I look forward to the chance to earn your support as we make Richmond a city that works for everyone. Thank you.
Once again, thank you all. As we move on to questions, I want to remind there will be 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer each question. If you look down in the middle, Tyrone's waving his hand, he will give you some timer prompts. Don't want to shut you off, but no, I'm joking. So we will be starting with education. The first question we have is, and this will start off with you, Harrison. We'll alternate with each question who starts off. How can the mayor work more effectively and efficiently with Richmond Public School Board to invest in early childhood education?
That's a great question. Fantastic question. Arguably the question of the next 10 years for Richmond. As you all know, we have an elected school board. The mayor's job is to be a champion for the public school system. Let's start with a values statement. Every child born in Richmond should have access to a high-quality public education, and that starts with pre-K. And while we are fortunate to have Head Start programs and the Virginia Preschool Initiative here in Richmond, we are not serving all of the students that we could be. We need to improve that. If we don't get students in our system prior to kindergarten, we start to lose ground where we need to be gaining ground and building the foundation. I've had the good fortune of spending time with students, teachers, and principals and school board members across Richmond, and the feedback that they get is exactly to Vic's question. The collaboration and the vision, the working together across not just the mayor's office and the school board, but also city council, is not where it needs to be. So let's start with some simple goals. We should want our students to succeed. We should want our teachers to feel empowered, not overtaxed and overworked. And we should want all of our schools to have the autonomy they need to deliver the best they can for our students. Thank you.
Mr. Neblett.
I would prioritize increasing funding for Richmond Public Schools to ensure that our students have access to quality education. This includes allocating resources for much needed infrastructure improvements, updating technology in classrooms, and providing adequate supplies for both teachers, students, and everyone involved in our children's growth. We must invest in our schools and invest in our future. Our administration will focus on teachers' retention and recruitment. We'll work to increase teachers' salaries to competitive salaries around the counties, to implement a robust mentorship program for new educators, and provide ongoing professional development opportunities by supporting our teachers. We support our students. I'm committed to expanding early childhood education programs across Richmond. We'll work to increase access to high-quality pre-K programs, particularly in underserved areas in our city. Early intervention is key to closing and crossing the achievements gap and setting our youngest residents on the path to success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Early childhood education is extremely important, and we know this because we know that the data shows that they're building prisons for our young people if they can't read. And so I will continue to do what I have done, continue to work with our school board electeds. As president of council, I brought our school board, our administration, and the council together so that we could discuss budgetary priorities. We could discuss community priorities so that we could build schools. We could put money in the budget so that as the mayor to put the money there in the budget and council to agree to keep the money in the budget because that's the process. But having the discussion with the school board allows for it to get to early childhood education. Because let's be clear, the school board is the directive of where the money should end up. And so we must make sure that we're building relationships, that we're supporting our school board electeds, that we're not walking in a dictatorship type of a thought process, because that's not going to get us where we're trying to go. We want cooperation, not confrontation. And so I've been able to work with our school board representatives. If all 9 of them stay, there's a great working relationship. And if the new ones come along, I'm committed to making that relationship as strong as if they have been there, because I understand the need for our young people to excel. And so I will be committed to ensuring that they excel, but with funding and accountability. Thank you so much.
You know, this one is deeply personal for me. As I shared, my wife is an elementary school teacher at Chimborazo Elementary. Our kids have all gone to Chimborazo Elementary. I see my wife year in after year, you know, trying to manage more complex student groups because of the way that our society is starting to really unravel, and that's particularly true post-COVID. I think we are all in agreement about what the goals are to really build a world-class school system, to invest in technology, to invest in infrastructure, to invest in people, in the staff, to be able to equip teachers to do the best job that they can. The question is, how do we do that? And I think the next mayor of the city has to not only reach across relationally to city council, build bridges with those city council members, but also with school board members, right? The relationship between the mayor and school board is extraordinarily important so that they know that they have the city's support, that the mayor will advocate for optimal funding year in, year out in the city's budget, and that they will go across the street to the General Assembly to advocate for more funding for our Richmond City schools. I think the other piece of this is thinking about what's happening on the ground in schools. We have a lot of other great city services that are kind of adjuncts to the same population: Parks and Rec, social services, libraries. There's a huge need for coordination and integration of existing quality services to surround schools and to surround students and give them the best opportunity possible.
So as a child, I grew up with a single mother, and she worked as a waitress and worked some part-time jobs when she could. And she would make sure that I was dropped off when she had to work at night as a waitress at the church nearby. And that church had a nursery, and I was with other kids my age where I learned how to read, letters, colors, things that made me understand more about what it means to go to school. We all were, and that opportunity of that partnership is what prepared me to be a kindergartner that next year. For me, that's what we need to do as a city. Find the partnerships we need across our community. Because right now, we don't have enough spaces to put after-school programs or even our pre-K education learning in every neighborhood. We need to make sure every child in every neighborhood has access, either walkable or within a few bus stops from their house, to get the education I had growing up as a kid. And for me, the job of mayor is to make sure we have those relationships. We have that understanding with what is the challenge facing kindergarten teachers. What's the gap they're seeing with their children? It's sounds. It's hearing conversations. It's listening to people talk. It's learning different words and other opportunities to advance yourself. And for me, that's the job of mayor. It's not just only funding, it's also building the relationships across our community. Churches, nonprofit organizations, all the things that make this opportunity happen in every community is what we need to focus on. For me, that's what we got to focus on, where we build those spaces to bring those opportunities to every child and every family. The last point is, we need to invest in engaging our families to know that this is available to them. Because a lot of them don't see it until it's already maybe too late. And that's not good enough for me. And as mayor, I'll make sure we prioritize that funding and relationships moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Ms. Mosby. Will you commit to fully funding schools? And if so, what plan do you offer?
Well, as a council representative, president of council, we funded schools. This last budget, 2024 budget, the schools received 52% of the general fund budget. I believe they asked for 249, received 239. I'm all into funding our schools. I'm all into working with our school board electeds. I'm all into ensuring that our children are educated and elevated. The goal is to not just fully fund, but continue the relationships so that we are expanding early childhood education, so that we are looking deeply at career tech education and how the funding can help support career tech education, that we're looking together to see how we can make sure that dual enrollment is an actual for our young people who are on a college track. So it's not just the commitment to fully fund, but it's the commitment to keep the conversation going so that education and elevation is indeed the goal for our young people.
Thank you. Mr. Vu? Yep.
So absolutely. I mean, I think all of us are in full agreement that without strong schools, our city is going to really struggle to move forward, right? We hear this story over and over of how families will move to the city, kids get to school age, families move out of the city. That's true for families who have the privilege to do that. Not all of our families do, right? We have to invest in schools to make sure that every child has the opportunity to learn, to thrive, and then to have the choice about where they want to live, whether it's Richmond or Henrico or New York City. So I will say that I'm absolutely committed to fully funding schools, but I would say beyond that, there's so many issues that we have faced in trying to pull down more money, trying to take advantage of federal money because we don't have the systems in place, grant writing, procurement, the basic functions that allow us to take advantage of federal funding. And so there's a lot of just systemic work that we need to do in both City Hall and the school administration to be able to do that.
So Ms. Mosby and I represent the last 12 years of budgets trying to fund schools. And I think to us, we've done the best we can with the resources we have, but now it's time to look to the future. Currently, if you own a home and you send a student to RPS, your taxes is probably $4,000 to $5,000 on average. Cost to go to school is $22,000. That gap is made up by the rest of our budget. And for us, the only way we're going to sustain that is looking to the future we build together. Because to me, we need to fund our schools. We need to support neighborhood inclusion in what we do together. But for me, the fact that we need to look towards how we fund schools comes to an understanding of what they truly need. And for me, what I think we need to focus on with this funding of schools is those wraparound services, after-school programs, arts, culture, music, athletics, making sure every child has the same access to the same amenities I had growing up in rural Northwest Virginia. And for me, that's going to take investment. But it's also going to make sure we take that burden away from us, the tax-paying homeowners and residents of the city, and really move that forward to where we want to see growth come from. As a city, we need to understand how we create a dollar, a revenue strategy that focuses on growth. Because while we've invested a lot in our schools, more is needed. But I'm not sure it's necessarily just in schools, in the classroom. We also need to support that time at home, after school, on the weekends, during the summer, and provide safe, reliable, healthy, and positive interactions for every child to grow and develop. And as mayor, I'll make that one of my #1 priorities in my first budget.
Thank you. I think you guys are getting the hang of this. Our next
Vic,
question.
do you want?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go.
Thank you. First of all, easy yes. We, of course, have to fully fund the Richmond public school system. Let's talk about a huge opportunity that was missed this year to do just that. A bill went through the General Assembly allowing cities like ours to increase revenue for schools. Governor Youngkin vetoed that bill. So we need a mayor who's going to tell the administration, yes, we need resources from for our schools from our local tax base. we also need your support in the General Assembly and in the Executive Mansion, because without that support, we're not going to have the funds that we need on a year-to-year basis, not just to fund the operations of the schools, but I visited a school in Southside that is essentially a brand new school, and it's only 4 years old. Its roof already needs to be replaced and repaired. I mean, we have very substantial capital outlays that are needed, and we need more funding to do all those things. And yes, that's going to come from local tax revenue, but we need partnership from the state in order to continue to make sure we have the resources we need so that every child, all 20 to 22,000 students in our school system, can go through with a quality public education. Thank you.
Yes, I do look to fully fund schools in RPS. I've attended over 10 schools in RPS, with me being an individual that was awarded to the state, experiencing different quality within those school systems. I first look to have a fully funded, but more so equitable across the board allotment of funds from each school in the city of Richmond. With that, I believe we will give our children a start and give them a push for success. Without that, we will have no way to ensure they will be successful with a disproportionate amount of funds when it comes to our RPS students. So I do look to have that, and I do look to collaborate across the seats within our government, and also I do look to create innovative ways that we as a community can draw funds for our RPS schools. Instead of waiting for a handout, we're going to make it happen for ourselves, with each other, as one Richmond, under our RPS umbrella, and we can make sure that our students will be successful going forward.
Thank you. Our next question is, how will you work to attract and retain talented individuals and educators, with Richmond Public School Board? For you, Danny.
I think it all starts with culture. Obviously, there's a lot of competition for talent in the education space. Teachers have the ability to kind of go to the place where they're going to feel the most supported. And some of that is pay, but some of it is the leadership in schools. And so I think, as I would do in City Hall as the mayor, I would certainly expect the school board and superintendent to really prioritize quality principles, making sure that they are setting the tone for culture. But I think there's also a lot of things that the city can do in partnership with the school system to ensure the schools have the resources to do that, right? I think the VCU's Richmond Teacher Residency is a great example of a program where kids will come, they will make a commitment to teach in Richmond Public Schools, it'll pay for some of their education. What we've seen too often is that those Richmond teacher residents may not even fulfill their full commitment. They get so frustrated because of the environment, or they're not feeling supported, and so they leave beforehand. And so I think as a city, we really need to focus on helping build culture and create environments in schools that allows programs like the RTR to be successful. We also need to build even more bridges to our HBCUs, to Virginia Union, to Virginia State, to build the pipeline so that we have teachers who look like the kids who are in our Richmond Public Schools, and so that they can see themselves in the role models in that classroom.
I think for me, when I look at RPS and I see its maturation, we've invested in as much as we can for our budgets today, and I think we need to continue to invest in the people that are the heroes of our schools, and that's the teachers. We've overburdened all of our teachers with all the tasks of every neighborhood and community that supports them. And with that expectation, it's hard to deliver the expectation of what they need to do in the classroom. Countless friends of mine have been teachers in RPS and have left because either culture, the work, the expectation of what they're supposed to do, it's just too much to handle. And while we focused on investing and making sure our pay is competitive and making sure our benefits are in line with the rest of the region, it's only a matter of time if we don't change the culture that will continue. And then we're bringing up another teacher, trying to help show them what we're supposed to do. It's from the top down. And for me, one of the things I feel is needed is the partnerships and the community involvement with each school. I represent a school that's one of the best in the city because of all the communities and partnerships and the parents that are involved with that school every day. And those parents feel the benefits of that. They provide resources to the classroom and everything else. The challenge is that's not the same just a mile away. And for me, we need to find a way to create that equitable balance across the resources needed for every classroom, not just those that have it, but those who also need the same exact thing. And for me, that's the feeling I think teachers want to see in their support for what they do every day, is making sure that they're not burdened with having to make sure every student has the same resources, and to make sure that they're able to grow and teach together. For me, as mayor, one of the things I want to make sure we do is collaborate. Our universities to bring maybe teaching aids and other resources to the classroom to support those teachers to meet the demands of the modern classroom. Thank you.
My goal is
Michelle Harrison. That's all right.
I think every single one of us can point to an amazing teacher that has made a wonderful difference in our lives. Every person here can do that. And that's the magic of great teachers. And it is very disappointing to meet with leaders and principals and teachers at RPS and hear about how many challenges they face day in and day out, having to do more with less, having opportunities that might sound good, like putting more time in the classroom for kids, but not accounting for the burden that creates for teachers, creating more burnout and turnover. I think the only way we can solve this is in a change in approach. And I think it has to be one that centers our students and teachers and says, what can we do to give everyone the greatest chance of success? Whether it's being in a facility that is modern, whether it's having a central office that supports the day-to-day tasks, not adds more and more to the plates of teachers without giving them the resources to do what they need to get done, and having a spirit of collaboration, not just in the mayor's office and the city council, but across within the school board and our out-of-school time organizations, so that everyone is moving in the same direction together. Thank you.
I believe as mayor, it's the responsibility that we lead by example, but also allow individuals to have a voice. Our teachers need to have opportunity to express their concerns without worrying about backlash or having issues in their classrooms and in their schools. That's one thing for sure we have to rid. We have to make sure that we have transparency so that we can bring ease to our teachers so that they can bring it ease for our children, and ultimately, that will make it a successful environment for our school system. Without that, I don't see where teachers will want to stay. They have to look over their back because they have to whisper. That's not how it should be. So as a mayor, I do look to make sure we have protections in place for the teachers. I want to make sure that we have policies written that increases the parents' participation in PTAs. We have to get the parents involved. The teachers are playing many roles. They are being an educator, they're being a counselor, they end up being a babysitter, and we can't have this. The teachers are the core of our success in our education system. That's the only way we'll be able to pull up our students and attract our parents to become more involved. Let's make it simple solutions for complex issues, and we can do this together.
My goal is to do what I've always done, and that's bring people together. Again, the school system is a funny bird. And for any mayor to go in and not have that understanding, again, we're confrontational and we're not getting anything done. And my goal is to get things done. So I will support our school board representatives. I will also support them in supporting our teachers. I will be a listening ear. I will be out in the community, making sure that we have churches, mentors, the Divine Nine. I'm calling everybody because we need everybody to help with our young people. And so with that being said, the goal is to ensure that our teachers' lives are not as complicated, not as hard in a school setting. So how do we do that? By not bringing the confrontation between council and school board and the mayor, but working with one another so that we can have one goal, and that is to educate, elevate, and help our teachers
do that and not be the social worker, not be all of the things that they're having to be. If we go in and we are confrontational, then it is only going to make it harder for your teachers. We have to learn to support and do it a different way.
Thank you. Our next question. How will you work with RPS to encourage and inspire the youth in our city to not only achieve in the classroom, but in our communities? What plans or initiatives do you have in mind?
One of the best things I think we can do as a city is to truly support after-school activities in every elementary, middle, and high school. Music, plays, being creative, taking things apart, putting things back together, learning, maybe even failing and learning how to do it better the next time. It's those experiences outside of the classroom that truly create a whole well-rounded student. And if we do that citywide, we can provide opportunities for them to see beyond maybe what they see at home or the neighborhood they call home. And for me, those opportunities come from how we can elevate that opportunity to see a future beyond high school. For me, one of the biggest things I think we can do is elevate the current Pathway Scholarship and convert it into a Promise Scholarship. And what that does, it says every high school 9th grader or 10th grader fills out a FAFSA form, shows their commitment to do something post-high school graduation. I want every high school graduate to feel that they have a plan to enter the workforce. And whether that be opening a business, finishing their associates at JSARJ, going to get a trade skill labor opportunity to get certified to do the construction projects or other things we have going around our city. Or maybe go to a 4-year college degree, but knowing exactly what they're going for. But here's the best part. They're gonna have the financial support, the encouragement of our teachers, our guidance counselors, and community. And that they're gonna make sure that they feel like they're not only getting a scholarship for free access, but I'm gonna make sure they feel that there's not a financial burden on them meeting ends and making ends meet as a student because they can afford to work and go to school at the same time. They'll pick one over the other. And for me, every child needs the same opportunity for that, and I commit to creating a Promise Scholarship for every student.
If you spend time with our young people, as I think many of you do, you're just struck by the amount of promise that every single person has. And I think in the nature of this question is an opportunity for all of us to expand how we think about this. You know, we can't just confine opportunities for children to learn to a window that is 6 or 7 hours a day in one building. We have to focus, and we also have to focus not just on what students are able to do on their own time, but how we engage families. Over and over, we hear feedback that we need more engagement from not just students themselves, but the folks around them. And the exciting thing about that is we are surrounded by a wonderful community that wants the best for our students. So I truly believe if we put our minds to it, we can create opportunities, yes, for after school time, yes, for after high school opportunities for apprenticeships. We can do those things. But I think more broadly, we can build a culture that says our students truly can be anything that they want to be and make that something that's not just something that's about our school system, but make it something that's about our whole community. Thank you.
Quality of education is crucial for our city's future. I'll push for increased funding to ensure our teachers are well paid and have the resources they need. But by expanding the STEM programs, arts education, and vocational training, we'll prepare our students for a diverse career in our society. I also plan to foster partnerships with local businesses and universities to provide mentorship and internship opportunities as well. Bridging the gap between education and employment is key. So with transitioning from high school into graduation, we need to have our students already prepared and equipped with full resumes that will allow them to be successful in our community. And with me being a RPS and Richmond native, I know that it can work and it can happen with resources and support from everyone involved in the school system. Our teachers play a crucial role in helping every single student on a daily basis. But it's going to take outside support. It's going to take support from your homes. It's going to take support from businesses. And also, we can bridge the gap with efforts that will allow us to plan success for our children's life in society. But first and foremost, we have to reduce the violence and give them opportunity for life. That's success.
Yes, ma'am. No problem. How will you work with RPS to encourage and inspire the youth in our city to achieve, not only in the classroom, but in our communities? And what plans or initiatives do you have in mind?
First and foremost, you have to be in the community to even know what the young people want, what they want to do. That's first and foremost. So if you're not in the community, you're kind of coming up with things on your own. So being in the community is key. Bringing organizations together so that we can have a collective impact. Richmond has a lot of great organizations doing great things, but we're getting minimal impact because what we're seeing is the organizations work in silos. And so we've got to bring our organizations together. Organizations that help our young people when they want to do sports. Organizations that help our young people when they're trying to be job ready. There are organizations out here, churches out here. The goal for me is bringing us together so that our children can really have the impact that we want to see them have. It's not just about RPS and bringing us together, but it's also public safety. Once we come together on this thing, and we bring everyone together and we begin to do things, as my girlfriend Cynthia Newbill says, string the pearls, then we'll have that type of an outcome because we'll be shifted. Our young people will have something productive to do, crime will go down, school grades will be better, and things will be in a different space. And so I'm about bringing us together so that we can have the outcomes that we need with our young people. They need it and they deserve it, and they need all of us to be a part of that movement.
I think inspiration is about exposure. My eldest daughter is Black. She's adopted. She grew up in the city, came to us as a teenager, and a few years ago she graduated from community college, which in and of itself was a beautiful moment. But in the audience were 15 of her younger cousins and siblings who watched her walk across the stage in this massive auditorium and get that diploma, and they were just electric, right? I mean, there's something about seeing somebody you know do something that says, okay, I can do that too. And so I think so much of our focus with our Richmond Public School students has to be about exposure. It's got to be more hands-on work and internships. We have an incredible community of nonprofits and for-profits in Richmond who would, in a heartbeat, take interns. I have a handful of high school students working on my campaign right now. But we need to cultivate those internship opportunities and build the bridge to private sector and nonprofit sector partners. We also need to invest in the Richmond Technical Center, right? We know that not everybody's pathway is college, and we know that there are huge gaps in the skills, in trades, in electric, in hard skills. And so we've got to really be committed to investing in and building out that Richmond Technical Center and taking advantage of all of the desire for investment that our larger community has to help us get that off the ground.
Thank you. We are going to move to economic development. First question is for you, Harrison.
Harrison.
Harrison, yeah. It's all good. How do you effectively plan to attract new business to the city to generate much needed tax revenue to support the initiatives that you all have been mentioning tonight?
Yeah, well, look, I think the first thing we have to do is support the small businesses that are already here, rather than focus on bringing in new ones. I mean, this is something that is so important to our city and so important to our community, and frankly does not get anywhere near the attention that it needs to. Imagine having the vibrant small business community that we have, whether it's restaurant owners or anyone else, coming to you and saying, we will for sure open a new location anywhere but the city of Richmond. That is a crazy dynamic that we are now in. We have to get ourselves out of that. We have to support our small business owners. This is something that I've been doing day after day, and I couldn't be more proud. It's not about me. When you provide opportunities for our small business owners, whether it's through the work that the city does or the work through partners do, when people have access to a level playing field, they're successful. And far too often, we overlook the people who are here every single day doing the work. We do not support them enough. In my administration, our #1 focus in the area of economic development will be supporting the businesses that are already here. We don't need to try and become another city. What's great about Richmond, the things we all love, we already have them. Let's build on the fact that we have an incredible arts and culture scene, an amazing small business community, wonderful entrepreneurs here. Let's build on that and support those people.
I will implement a targeted workforce development to bridge the skill gap in our city. We'll partnership with local businesses and community colleges and vocational schools to create training programs that aligns with the needs of our growing industries. This would ensure Richmond's residents are prepared for the jobs of today and for tomorrow. But our administration will focus on attracting and retaining diverse businesses in Richmond. We'll streamline the business permitting process, offer strategic tax incentives, and create a dedicated office of support for entrepreneurs and small business owners. By fostering a business-friendly environment, we will create more job opportunities for residents. I'm committed to revitalizing our historic neighborhoods while preventing displacements. We will implement community-driven development approach, ensuring the economic growth benefit of all Richmond residents will be successful. This includes supporting local businesses, improving the infrastructure, and creating mixed-use developments to enhance our communities. Supporting the residents to become more skillful and more marketable employees will strengthen our businesses. Allowing our businesses to cut through the red tape and procedural guidelines in the city of Richmond will attract them even more. But for more, we have to structure the business taxes so that they are not restrained in being able to be successful in prioritizing revenue.
That's your one warning. Joking. Michelle?
As a small business owner in the city of Richmond, like Mr. Roday said, we have to work hard to retain the businesses that we have and not take them for granted. This requires the city being intentional in reaching out to our existing businesses and ensuring that they are getting the customer service touches and support that they need. Ensuring that incentives are not just for new businesses, but seeking ways to ensure we are partnering to help businesses thrive and not just survive. Valuing the contribution of all of our existing businesses is critical to us as having a strong economy. While doing the retention, the recruitment is also still necessary. We have to grow economically. This requires us to have an aggressive strategy that will seek out business opportunities in other parts of Virginia, the state, and even globally. We have to position ourselves to be competitive in our mission to attract new businesses to Richmond. We have to examine our business incentive programs. We have to make sure that our procurement department is working for all people and be intentional about preparing a workforce. And that is the way we can change the narrative as it relates to economic development.
I was talking to a restaurateur last week, and they own a few restaurants in Richmond and Henrico, and had identified a spot for a new one. And she said, in confidence, even though I'm telling you all this, she said, I was praying it was on the Henrico side of the line, but it turned out to be a few hundred feet over in the Richmond city. And they're still gonna do it, but it broke my heart to hear that, right? And I think it is emblematic of this issue that our basic functions of the city operation have, where we have not been good partners to small businesses. We have made it very complicated for small businesses to do simple things like pay their taxes or get accurate meals tax receipts, or there's so many things that have made it hard for small businesses to function, and they just want a city government that they can trust. And so I think that's where it starts. It starts with really being focused on the basics of City Hall operations and making sure that it works for our small businesses. Second, I think, Harrison mentioned this, that we do have, part of what makes the city beautiful is the array of businesses that are here, the restaurants, the small shops, and we've got to figure out how to support those businesses. And I'll go a step further and say that, as somebody who has spent my career thinking about equity and equality, equality is where you give the same thing to everybody. Equity is where you actually invest more in communities that have historically suffered more. And so I do think we really need to focus on supporting minority-owned businesses to keep the richness of the city alive.
Thank you.
So as a small business owner, I opened a gym in Scotts Addition 3.5 years ago, and it took me 1.5 years to put in a bathroom and an ADA ramp access. And for me, when I hear this complaint about when I had my story published in Richmond BizSense, the amount of people who said, finally someone who's elected had the same problem I did. Because really what happens is you realize how challenging it is. I never felt that the city wanted me to open my doors. Everything was, I reject your plan, I reject your permit, I don't support your project. I'm putting my blood, sweat, and tears like everyone else has in the city to try to find a way to open a business. And for me, we cannot have that climate of operation. We've got to be a partner. I've got to want you to succeed. I want to make sure I find a way for you to open your doors as soon as possible. For me, what's in the way of that? Permitting. Well, we're working on that, but we got more work to do. Inspections. Making sure that when you get your permit, then the inspections of installation are done quickly and timely. The biggest thing we have in the barrier, though, is our taxes are triple the county. Tonight in council, which I had to miss for this amazing forum, there's a paper that being introduced today lowering or increasing the threshold for small businesses from $250,000 to $500,000. It's not enough. The rate needs to be dropped. The threshold needs to be $1 million because in Henrico and Chesterfield, that's what it is. Businesses, as Dr. Avula mentioned previously, they're making decisions on where they open a business. And it's not us. And we need to change that. The biggest thing I want to see now is when we look at the Diamond District, I don't want to see a bunch of corporate chains. I want to see a Mama J's, Urban Hang Suite. I want to see a Kroger Spot. And we need to support our entrepreneurs and make sure they have the resources and access to make that dream happen for all of us.
Thank you. Our next question is, what ideas do you have or plans to generate more revenue without raising taxes on everyday residences? Mr. Niblett?
So first and foremost, we have to come with an innovative approach when it comes to generating revenue, and we have to also provide the services to our surrounding counties so that we're able to pull in revenue. I believe that keep holding on to our utilities and not privatizing that so that we are able to keep the gas line and keep those revenues coming into the city. I do believe that we can foster programs that will pull in the volunteer groups that will contribute to our efforts for increasing revenue with initiatives like our community cleanups, our mowing and lawn mowing efforts with generating funds instead of waiting until individuals who aren't able to cut their grass and their revenue they don't have as much revenue as their counterparts due to their circumstances. I believe that we are able to provide them a service to cutting their grass on a daily, and I believe out of 100 and some odd thousand individuals in our community, if we can captivate 45,000 individuals, we will be able to increase the revenue from over $3 million at between $150 a month with just providing services with grass cutting. That's just a small example.
Thank you. Ms. Mosby?
I think a lot of it has been said even in just getting the basics right. If we can get the basics in our city right, then that means it brings in more restaurants. It brings in more businesses, which then brings in more revenue for the city. It allows for a trust factor to happen. Once we get the basics right, you'll trust us to do developments like the Diamond District and other development projects. The problem has been that the basics are not right. And so because the basics aren't right, you can't trust that you're going to get your permit. So you don't want us to do anything else to get anybody else a permit. So we've got to get the basics right in City Hall. Like Mr. Addison said, we are the highest taxed of all the metropolitan area. And so we've got to look at tax relief for our city residents. Are we talking real estate tax? Maybe that's not the tax. I've got to look at it to see, but there are other taxes like he talked about, the BPO tax. How can we look at things to make sure that we are providing a tax relief for the people of Richmond and providing excellence in services? Again, the way that we're going to be able to bring in other revenue is fixing the basics. The people of Richmond need to see that they're getting a return on their investment with their everyday tax dollar. Then they can see us do bigger investments, other investments, a city stage downtown, and all of the other things that we'd like to see in a vibrant Richmond. I'm willing to go into it as mayor, and let's be committed to getting the basics right for the people of Richmond. Excellence in services is what you deserve, and I'm committed to bring that forward for us.
Thank you, Ms. Mosby.
I think we increase revenues by increasing the density of people that live in the city. You know, one of our primary sources of revenue is property tax, and so the more people that live in the city, the more tax revenue there is. It is bringing more business into the city. It is improving the efficiency of the actual operation. And then there is another source of effectively advocating for state and federal dollars. You know, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I've talked to so many, we had a roundtable of affordable housing developers recently, and I've talked to so many for-profit developers who have said, you know, what takes 2 years to get done in the city takes 6 months to get done in the county. A simple process that takes 2 days in the county may take 3 or 6 months here. And, you know, we've just got to lean into those basic operations. You've heard permitting talked about a lot tonight. When I was Commissioner of Social Services, one of the issues we had to tackle was turnaround time on background investigations. Similarly, turnaround time on permitting is an exercise where we've got to get into the nuts and bolts of the process. You've got to take every step and figure out how do you cut steps out? How do you ensure that you have enough people to actually provide the service that the city needs? And how do you make sure you're investing in technology to make it easier for those for-profit and affordable housing developers to actually get through our system? Because the easier we make it on them, the quicker they can get a shovel in the ground, and the quicker we get that tax revenue back in the city's coffers.
Thank you.
Just today, CNN announced Richmond is the top city to visit. Tourism is great for Richmond because people come to spend their money. They come to stay in hotels, which pay taxes. They come to eat in restaurants, which also pay taxes. They come to enjoy all the things that we love to have. And let's face it, we have tons of festivals and reasons why people should want to come and enjoy our beautiful riverfront and our trails and everything else we love to call home here for. That's one great way to embrace the future of tourism across our city. We need more hotels downtown. The convention center is a great place to support just with putting some hotels nearby to make sure it's used every single day, every single week throughout the year. Because those people are paying good money to come here and spend it in our city. And guess what? I want every single cent we can get. Because that's how we can fund our biggest priorities. Right now across the city, people that are living in homes have a for sale sign go up, and then that means that next year's taxes are going to go higher. All across the city, our tax structure is currently defined by the state of Virginia, punishes you for staying in your home. The home you've called your domicile for the last 10, 20 years is now gone up in value. In fact, it's gone up 75% on average since 2016. That means that families are paying 75% more in taxes than they were just 8 years ago. Our economy and jobs and increase in revenues and our increase in salaries is not supporting that cost and putting a big burden on families. To me as mayor, I want to reform how we tax our properties. More importantly, transitioning our revenue from our homeowners and supporting that going towards our future development of the growth of our city. For me, I'm out of time. We'll end with that.
We've had a lot of good conversation about the revenue side of the ledger. How crazy are some of the stories that people have read about in the newspaper? Folks getting a $25,000 water bill. I mean, there are developers who have said anecdotally they don't even receive a bill from our Richmond gas utility. So you've got ordinary folks getting these crazy bills that they're being told they owe, and some of our biggest businesses are not even being charged for the services that they're using. That's wrong, and that needs to be fixed. We also need to talk about the other side of the ledger. You know, Richmond is roughly the same size as Norfolk, Virginia, in land area, in people, and in demographics. And we spend 30 to 40% more per person here delivering every single city service than Norfolk does. And I don't think it's because anyone here feels like we get 30 to 40% better city services. So I think the next mayor needs to have, yes, a rigorous approach on making sure the city gets all the revenue that it deserves, but we also need to make sure we're spending our money efficiently because those are your taxpayer dollars. Arguably, the mayor's single most important job is writing the budget. If we're not spending those dollars wisely, then we're making a huge mistake. I think we need a change in approach here, and I'd be glad to be the one to deliver that.
Thank you. And just a reminder, I'm going to ask candidates to stay within time. We have some great community questions, and I want to let you complete your thought, but once we're at time, I will start to interrupt. A few of you have mentioned the cost burden on families, and we have two questions about that I'd like to ask you. And this one is for you, Ms. Mosby, first. With children and families in Richmond facing food insecurity and food deserts, and a 9.3% of Virginia's families facing those same insecurities across the Commonwealth, what will you do in your role as mayor to lessen the impact of food insecurity on children and families in Richmond?
Work to collaborate. Again, I've been a part of a church that provides food from the food bank, and that is what we've done every Tuesday. And so working to ensure that until families can get stable, until we can really change the narrative in our families so that there are working parents that can take care of themselves, take care of their families and their children. It's connecting them to the resources in our communities, such as food banks that are in our churches, to ensure that our families are eating until we can, to help them to be at a better place. Working to really bring about stability in families, bringing employment, looking at social services, looking at all of the resources beyond the food, because I believe we can get the food there through the resources that I know that we have in the community, but also trying to see how we can get them from that place where they can truly be stable within their families and take care of their families and be able to buy their own groceries. And so I'll work diligently to ensure that families who are in food deserts, families who are have the issues and not able to secure food, have the resources that they need in the communities to have the food that they need.
Thank you.
I think there's the acute problem of food insecurity, and then there's the longer term problem. I would say with the acute problem, you know, I've spent my career as the public health director and subsequently as the commissioner of social services, really trying to tackle these issues of how do we deliver food benefits to low income families who need them. As health director, we partnered extensively with convenience stores, with Shalom Farms, with tricyclers, with urban farms to try to start to build more local ecosystems where food is produced. We actually then partnered with organizations that were led by African American leaders to make sure that they had that their communities had access to food from people they trusted. So I think there is a lot of just building the network of food and ensuring that families are educated about where and how best they can use the benefits that they can get through the social services system. But then there's the longer term issue, which is how are we actually helping families out of poverty? How are we getting them to a place where they have the resources they need to be able to purchase food and not deal with food insecurity? And so I think the Office of Community Wealth Building was a fantastic start in that. There's so much more work that we can do to build out the wraparound services, coaching, and job training that families need to be able to get on that path.
So I grew up in Northwest Virginia, surrounded by farms. Every night, my parents would send me out with that salad spinner, and I'd go fill it up with all the things from our garden. I want every child to have that same experience that I had. Every school should have a garden. Every community should have a community garden. We should see urban farming in every aspect of our city. Not only seeing food on the table, but knowing how it got there and where it came from is the most important thing you can teach anyone. And for me, I want to make sure that's a pillar of what we do here in the city. And I think, too, there's too many conversations I've had throughout these last 8 years on council and the 8 years before in City Hall that taught me that, you know what? We just need grocery stores, high-quality, full-service grocery stores in South Side and North Side. And I don't just mean Manchester, I mean down into South Side Plaza, getting down to Belt Boulevard and Walmsley. Let's get down to where they are really needed. And I mean Kroger and Publix, the same things that I get to go access to, I want to make sure are in every corner of this city. We got to plan for that as a city. But I'm going to take you a step back, because last 2 semesters I teach at UVA. I teach social enterprise. And we tackled food insecurity the last 2 semesters. And my students went grocery shopping as a family of 3 on SNAP benefits. And they came back and created ideas for how to solve and address food insecurity. It was cooking classes that used the ingredients available through SNAP benefits that empowered recipes to feed a whole family. It was making sure that there was no barrier to access to feed your family. It was supporting you where you were at. The biggest thing they saw, everyone needs access to cutting boards, knives, Tupperware, things to cook and make food together, pots, pans, strainers, etc. And those are not as cheap as you think they are. And for me, every family needs the same access to a garden as they do to cooking supplies as well.
Thank you.
Everyone in our community deserves access to high quality and nutritious food. You know, over the last few years, I've had the good fortune of helping run an organization called Food Shed Capital that supports farmers, particularly farmers who identify as BIPOC, up and down the East Coast. And we've seen tremendous success in supporting urban farms, folks who start in a community gardening program, transition to an urban farm, and ultimately sell their produce into a grocery store. In the work that I've done with the small business community, the organization that I started called Bridging Virginia, one of the first small businesses that we supported was a food business that started with access to selling their product at the market at 25th Street. And that since went to go and be sold in Churchill. I know we have the tools to do this because I've been part of the process to help get that done. So we can absolutely get higher quality, more available nutritious food, not just for families who live here, but for students in our school system as well on a day-to-day basis, which is a critical need that I think is often under-discussed and unaddressed. Thank you.
I believe that, you know, as a mayor, I moved to advocate for more funding in the SNAP and EBT program. It's unfortunate, as a community organizer, I've witnessed families have less than $100 with a family of 4. We have elderly that have $20 a month in SNAP benefits. I believe tirelessly that I would advocate to increase that funding, but also enforce the SNAP purchasing requirements to ensure that individuals that are receiving those SNAP benefits are utilizing those funds within their household. I've seen it firsthand living in Gilpin Court, in Blackwell, in Fairfield Court, in Mosby. I mean, it's the same process where you see individuals who receive funding, but some of them just pawn off their funding to other individuals, and they just don't feed it to their home. So not only just increasing and advocating for SNAP increases, you know, I do pose that we do increase our involvement for urban farming. Also, we have to have career development highly impacted in those communities so that those individuals will become more stable on their own, so that they are successful and they are able to ensure that they have everything they need with their funding, and we can eliminate disparities. And the time is eliminated, sorry.
Thank you for adhering to the time. All right. Our next question is, childcare costs are an enormous strain on families. The lack of affordable childcare is a barrier to parents entering the workforce. In Richmond and surrounding counties, over 71% of children under the age of 6 have all available parents in the workforce, and 47% of children that start kindergarten without key skills. In your role as mayor, how will you make sure that affordable, high-quality childcare is available for families that need it? And I'm going to read that part, the last part, one more time. As mayor, how will you make sure that affordable, high-quality childcare is available for families that need it? That's you, Danny.
Yeah, affordable childcare is crippling our economy. You know, we've wrestled with this over the last couple of years in my role as Commissioner of Social Services because the social services system up until recently provided that childcare benefit. There's a huge role in advocating for state and federal dollars to make more childcare subsidy available to be able to support families with those needs. Now, the problem is that even if we had more subsidy, we don't have enough spots here in the city. And so this comes back to the city being a good partner to different small businesses, to childcare providers. You know, we have great providers who would absolutely break ground and put their schools in city properties if the city would come along as a willing partner. And so I really, you know, in so many of these examples, we talk about what does it take for City Hall to listen well to the community, to then come up with innovative partnerships and figure out how do we make it financially work for both the city and for the business owner who wants to run a child care center. There's a third issue here that even if we had more child care centers, making sure that we have staff to actually serve in those child care centers. I served on the board of the Virginia Virginia Early Childhood Foundation that does statewide work advocating for child care staff. And so they have really deployed some effective programs to recruit and to increase the pay of child care workers. We need to do more of that to make sure there's a stock in the city.
Thank you.
Affordability is something that impacts everybody in many different ways. When it comes to childcare, I mean, even in the services that are provided in my neighborhood, there's a wait list. And all the parents go to every single one they can and try to get their name in the list and try to do what they can to prioritize for their childcare for their children. But then if you go just a little further away, you don't have that same access. They don't have that same proximity to having childcare near where they work, where they live, or in high-frequency transit that they need to use to get to where they need to get to. It's not just about needing affordable childcare and that's high quality and meets the demands of a modern education system, but more importantly, you need to make sure it's supported in the access to the people that we're trying to support, those parents. And for me, that's one of the biggest challenges we have is where do we need to put these? We can look at city property. I'm all in on doing that too. But let's look at churches. Let's look at other nonprofit organizations. Let's look at places where we know there's an interest and an appetite to do that. Let's look at our biggest employers. Let's focus on finding some of our philanthropic partners and say, hey, we've got a demand and need. You are hiring people that don't have access to high-quality childcare. Together, let's put it in your building. Let's put it in your business. Let's put it in your ground floor area. Let's make sure everybody, not just your employees, but others can benefit from that too. I also think we need to focus on what is being done in that childcare opportunity. Is there opportunity for education? Are we learning them? Or just putting them in front of a screen because it pacifies them? I want us to be making sure it's developing children, engaging them in positive ways, and supporting their well-rounded development. For me, that's going to be how we partner with our higher education institutions, VUU, U of R, VCU, J. Sargent Reynolds, to provide the teaching and the quality education for those who staff these operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Harrison?
I think until we start to value more the people who provide childcare, we are not going to have enough childcare. We don't spend enough time supporting the individuals and families who are really the linchpins of our community, who provide childcare often with no compensation at all. I think until we work together to come up with a plan that says, here's how we're going to support the whole of the family, and here's how we're going to value people who spend their time caring for families, we're not going to get to where we need to go. So I'd be a strong advocate of exploring tax incentives and other opportunities to try and create training programs right here in the city so that people who want to go into childcare have easy access to those opportunities. It's also critical that we provide facilities for people. That's one of our biggest gaps right now is opportunities for physical space. It's not because we lack land and buildings in Richmond. We have land and buildings here. We just don't do a good enough job of utilizing them. I think we need to work more creatively to locate those centers closest to the folks who need them most. We all should feel fortunate that the population of Richmond is growing. But as this growth continues, this problem is, like housing, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, is one that only will have more and more focus on it as time goes on. Thanks.
I believe increasing the opportunity for individuals to receive child care is critical in our community. That's the thriving time for individuals like the parents to be able to work and be able to do things they need for their household. One of the ways I believe we can help was to develop a Richmond City Child Care Support Supplement Staff Center, where we can help individuals who want to learn and want to go in child care, and they can become professionals in that arena and support the nonprofits that already are doing this. But we need to extend our after-school programs. We need to ensure that these organizations have the space to house and oversee the individuals that they're watching during that time. I do believe that with the affordable side of it, we can have a system developed to supplement the cost for the parents in regards to the child care expenses. But ultimately, we can create a stipend program that will support the help. Help the individuals who are already doing the work, provide them access and resources so that they are able to expand and cover a large wide range for the child care area in the city of Richmond. I do believe we do need to have a child care organization within the city hall limits as well, having child care within
Thank you.
the city hall.
You were at time. Thank you.
Child care, I believe that goes back to, again, the basics. I've known daycares in the city of Richmond that have been trying to get the permit to be a daycare, and that's been a hindrance. And so we've got to make sure that the city hall is working for the people of Richmond, the businesses of Richmond. And so making sure that our basics are done, partnering with community partners that want to be daycare owners. Again, Dr. Avula said, we're not great partners. And so we've got to change that narrative. If we want to really ensure that our young people are getting the best out of the services that we want to provide for them, then it is imperative that we become better partners. Partners that are going to make sure that the permitting is working, partners that are going to make sure that we are treating our daycares as if they are a business in our city, and that we're concerned about their welfare. We're concerned about their day-to-day operations, and partnering with them in that process so that they can be a good partner and open more daycares, and it become something that is staffed and works for the children, the people, and the city of Richmond. And so it's about really bridging those gaps and becoming better partners for the people of Richmond.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to housing. And we are going to start with you, Andres. With rising rent-to and home prices, what plan will you enact to improve the availability of affordable housing within the scope of the city's economic development strategic plan?
So the challenge we have with affordability, especially as it relates to rents, is that we are a city that rents. I think over 56% of residents across the city are renters. My wife and I are one of them. And through that, one of the challenges we have is that the market pressures of what makes rent rates what they are is driven by all the forces around us. And so one of the challenges we need to do is build more. Sounds crazy, but we need to build more apartments. And we need to incentivize in the affordability that we want to see. Now, affordability for today is different than it was 5, 10 years ago. We don't control what level of affordability means. And for me, what I want to make sure we focus on is our workforce housing. Those people who are just making ends meet, they need to be able to have the same access others do in the same city. And for me, we need to focus on making sure we put that affordable housing near transit, near green spaces, near schools, near parks, and opportunities for access to all the things that the family needs. For me, we need to make sure we incentivize with working hand in hand with developers. As mayor, one of the things I think would be a good opportunity to make a difference, prioritize every building permit to fast track if it has affordability in it. Because for me, that's the #1 thing we can do, is to make sure we're putting them at the front of the line, because we need that much housing. Now, for me, one of the things we need to make sure we think about too is we need to make sure we have 3-bedroom apartments that are affordable, because too many of them are single studio, 1 bedroom, or maybe 2. That's not enough. We've got families that have kids that need to have support for separating their children, their boys and girls, et cetera, and we need to make sure that we're providing all housing opportunities for all residents across our city. A strong plan is going to be putting those incentives and location and making sure we invest where we want them to be tomorrow.
Thank you. Harrison?
There's no question that right now we are in a housing affordability crisis. And we simply need to start by saying everyone in our community deserves a safe and affordable place to live. And we shouldn't rest as a community until we can all say that that statement is true. We're very far from there. Right now, the city's budget this year is about $3 billion all in. And this year, to invest in housing, we're going to be borrowing $10 million to invest in a trust fund. $10 million in a budget of $3 billion. That does not sound to me like a commitment to solving what is arguably the city's most pressing problem. That is my strong belief. I think we need a mayor who is going to say, I am willing to partner with anyone to solve this problem, and we're not going to do it alone. We're not going to do it without partnering with our neighbors in Henrico and Chesterfield. If we do it alone, we won't be successful. We should all be excited that Richmond is an attractive place to live. But if we continue to grow and don't support longtime Richmonders and people who are new to Richmond, we're just going to have more individuals who feel like they're left behind. That's not acceptable, and we have to change that. If we don't, we're not going to be the kind of place that people want to raise a family. So you have my commitment to work on that problem every single day.
I will implement affordable housing strategy that includes increasing the city's investment in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This will support the development and preservation of affordable housing units across Richmond, ensuring that our residents have access to safe and affordable homes. Our administration will work closely with developers to incentivize the inclusion of affordable units in the new housing projects. We'll streamline an approval process for developments that meet or exceeds the affordability targets, while also exploring exclusionary zoning policies to ensure a mixed housing options are available in all neighborhoods. I'm committed to addressing the root causes of the housing insecurity. We'll launch targeted programs to prevent evictions, provide rental assistance to families at risk of homelessness, and offer financial counseling and home ownership education to help more Richmond residents to achieve affordable housing and stability. Long-term solutions are key, and ultimately we do need to rid of the unaffordable housing. More apartments that are not affordable causes assessment values to spike. The comps are going to push individuals who own homes in Richmond, they want to push individuals out of Richmond. $15,000 a year for home ownership. Okay.
Ms. Mosby.
The people of Richmond can expect a strategy for housing affordability in our city with Michelle as mayor. As council representative, I supported the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and as mayor, we will make sure that we are maximizing our funding efforts so that we are clear on that investment. I supported the Maggie Walker Land Trust, and I want to ensure that we are maximizing our land use and zoning to yield the best results. Looking at our Richmond Land Bank and ensuring that we are building community that will lead to outcomes in our Big Moves plan in the Richmond 300. We should revisit our incentive package, look at low-income tax credits, especially with our local developers, to ensure that we're getting mixed income developments with some lower AMI and real affordable housing stock that lasts for decades. I would like to see us usher in a new era of homeownership through tiny homes, which will allow for young professionals, even our seniors, and our low-income folk to be a part of the opportunity to be homeowners. It's time to not just be a renter. I am a real estate agent for 18 years. It's time to reintroduce homeownership. And the way that we can do that, I believe, is through introducing a new era of tiny homes in the city of Richmond.
Thank you.
This issue of housing affordability is really one of the most compelling reasons that I decided to run for mayor. You know, I shared a little bit about our move into the East End in search of this beloved community, and what has happened over the last 7 to 8 years has been the mass displacement of many of my low-income African-American neighbors. Folks whose property taxes have gotten to a place where they can't stay in a house, folks whose rents have gotten so high that they've got to move out to the inner ring suburbs of the counties. And I sit here thinking that, you know, if we had placed caps on property taxes a decade earlier, or if we had invested in the Affordable Housing Land Trust or the Maggie Walker Land Bank a decade earlier, we would have that incredible richness that we were in search of. And we can still do that in communities that haven't turned. We can still do that in pockets of North Side and certainly in South Side. And so I think there are policy strategies that we've got to put in place to ensure that the housing mix allows for a racial and socioeconomic mix of residents. I think the other thing is that we've got to use more tools as a local government. You know, we just watched Henrico come alongside a private developer to build 800 units of affordable housing in the eastern part of Henrico County. And what the county did was not only did they offer incentives, they've offered about $11 million of low-interest loans, but they also granted the site work, the demo, and the infrastructure work, and made it possible for a developer to come in and make that investment. So more ideas like that.
Thank you. You got that last one in quick. That's all right. Our next question is, what is your plan to create transitional housing for our unhoused neighbors and improve the continuum of care? Harrison.
Right now, we have a new site, as many of you know, on Northside that is coming online to support folks in our community who are unhoused. The good news is that that project will provide beds. Unfortunately, when the project is completed, it still won't be sufficient for the number of individuals who are unhoused now. So we have more challenges ahead of us to solve. The only way I know how to do this is to take action in a partnership-oriented way. You know, we solved a difficult problem a few years ago, not permanently, but in our way of addressing it. Folks said there's no way to address the needs of access to capital. It's too hard. We started a public-private partnership and started to address that problem. And bit by bit, we're addressing it in the community. The challenge of folks who are unhoused is a national one. It's not an easy one. And I think if anyone says they have a magic bullet solution, then they're probably not looking at the full extent of the challenge. I think what the city needs to do is put a firm line in the sand and say, our public dollars are going to go towards supporting those who are either unhoused or the most housing insecure in our community. We don't need public dollars subsidizing the creation of market rate apartments. That's not what we need to do. So I think that would be a helpful and constructive first step, is just come to a community consensus and say, this is where we want to invest resources because we need to solve this problem as a city.
Thank you. Mr. Neblett.
All right, so, you know, with this housing crisis, it has been increasing since the pandemic. We've exceeded the 3,000 individuals who have become displaced. What I do look at, that we do need to increase the bed count from 50 to 150 to 300. We need to make sure we have enough beds so that individuals are not just housed during inclement weather times, but to ensure that they are transitioning and being giving financial awareness along the way, and not just placing a Band-Aid over a wound. I do believe that when we have the displacement of individuals, we have to increase the outreach so that they're aware that the housing for the beds are available. At times they are empty. They don't know that they are able to go inside of those shelters because they just are being told that they have to leave, and they go to the library, and while they're at the library, they just wait until they travel back to the shelters and hope that it's open. We do need to increase outreach, and when it comes to the housing crisis for the displaced. And not only that, we need to make sure that we provide them with financial awareness and provide them with stability through our public trust and tips that will be more useful than other projects.
Thank you. Ms. Mosby?
So the housing crisis is indeed a crisis, and it's hard. With that being said, I've been a part of the shelter on Chamberlain that has moved to the 150 beds. I was a part of the different shelters that we had. We had one behind my office on Wall Street. What I'm finding is that we have to be intentional about wraparound services. We have to be intentional about wraparound services. And in doing so, it leads a path for those unhoused who are working. It puts them on a different trajectory when we have the wraparound services. There are some unhoused that have the mental health challenges that's going to require us to really network with our state and federal partners to see what we can do as it relates to our mental health unhoused. But those that are on a trajectory that get up and work every day, I've watched them get up at 7:30 in the morning and go to jobs. And so to have just a bed, and we did not have the resources in place to ensure that they could move forward, is not productive. And so as mayor, ensuring that we are providing the beds, but also making sure that the wraparound services are there to help people be better.
Thank you. Dr. Avula?
Yeah, I mentioned I had pulled together a group of affordable housers. It was actually at that Cool Lane site, the Virginia Supportive Housing's new site in the north side of the city. And one of the things that became clear is that there is a very doable solution to address the about 500 people in the region who are homeless. It would take an additional 350 units of permanent supportive housing to almost solve the issue of homelessness in our community. Now, that's a large number for us as a locality, but we have a nationally recognized continuum of care that really supports the entire region. And I think we have really great leadership in this space in both the affordable housing and continuum of care, and we need a regional solution. And so part of the solution here is for the mayor to reach out to our regional partners and make a regional investment in ensuring that we have the units necessary to solve this problem permanently for Richmond. I think the second thing is that we need the housing authority to be a good partner in this, right? The public housing authority has to be part of these conversations. It's part of that continuum of housing from supportive housing to public housing to permanent housing elsewhere. And so we really need to bring them as more of a partner than they have been. And then we do need to address the root cause mental health and substance use issues that drive so many people into homelessness.
Thank you.
You know, one of the biggest challenges, I think, facing homelessness is those who currently have homes but are in threat of losing them. We had 12,000 eviction cases go before our courts last year. That was a big reason why, when I saw the outcomes of the RVA Eviction Lab study report, I prioritized making sure that we supported as council the creation of the shelter in Northside. But we also want to make sure we look at further, where we have emergency shelters. We changed zoning to allow for emergency shelters to be allowed by right, which means there's no need to go for special approval, so we can have our owners of properties to be able to open them for those who need it. Those are just two little steps, but as we've heard, there's a much bigger challenge. So for me, we have the second highest per capita rate of evictions. We have more issues in regards to their legal representation. That's why this budget has a prioritization that I made sure was in there for the right to counsel for those facing eviction. It's going to be funded by the city and worked in collaboration with the Legal Aid Society. That should take effect later this fall, and I look forward to seeing what they learn about the facts, the face of homelessness for those facing that in our city right now. But let's talk about the unhoused. We can look at things like the Dorothy in Atlanta, where they converted shipping containers into housing units that are off on city-owned property that provide access to quality, dignity housing to support their ability to live and grow and provide access to jobs. They don't pay rent until they make money above a certain level. They want them to build wealth, get their feet under themselves, and find themselves in the future of the city. And for me, we want to make sure we do that. There's also cities converting commercial offices into housing as well. We should be creative, look at opportunities to provide access in small nuggets around the city.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to safety and security. What is your plan to address gun violence, and more specifically, how do you plan to address gun violence among our youth? That's for you, Mr. Nibble. You got it.
So first and foremost, we have to become more involved in our community with the nonprofit organizations that are actually out here doing the work. We have to make sure that we go into the classrooms, into the schools, and encourage our youth that they can become something, they can become what they see and what they dream. So organizations like the Rock Project, one of the organizations that I help support and I'm involved with, they cultivate an environment of family. They cultivate an environment of trust, and they have the youth involved. They make sure that they're fed, they make sure that they have access to resources, and also help support in that arena as well. But the key to reducing gun violence would be going to the door, going to these homes, having an intervention, making sure that we are giving them resources that they need. You have people out here that's hungry. You have people that need food. They feel that that's the only way that they're able to make it happen for themselves. So with us providing wraparound services within the community, I believe we will be able to reduce gun violence, and we can increase code enforcement to take the vehicles off the streets that are abandoned, that where the guns are being hidden on a day-to-day basis. We need to remove these vehicles that are abandoned off the streets. So we need to make sure.
Thank you so much. Ms. Mosby.
So the people of Richmond can expect a real public safety strategy. First and foremost, we need to take a holistic approach. We need to work with our chief to hire and retain community-minded officers. We are down 150 officers. We cannot maintain our city without police officers. And so I will work with our police chief to hire and retain. I will support our police, our fire and EMS through competitive salaries, continual training, and accountability. But more so than that, we have to rebuild our village, y'all. We do. We have to work with organizations, nonprofits, churches, RPS to bring cohesiveness. We must unite to fight the root causes of crime. Dr. Avula talked about a different environment. And I'm saying again, I'm running for mayor because our young people need to see a black woman be their mayor. They need to see someone that can walk into their communities and say, stop that. They need to see someone in their community that looks like them, that have made it from point A to point B, and can bring our churches together so that our churches can help us rebuild our village. Our young people, our families, our mothers have gotten younger, and so it has made a shift in our communities, and it is going to take us, people that look like me, people that look my color, my complexion, to go into our communities and help our young people be at their best. And so that's why I'm running for mayor, so we can make these shifts in our community.
Thank you.
That's pretty good. I like that. Sadly, my kids have gotten really good at telling the difference between gunshots and firecrackers. That is just a reality of the community that they've grown up in, and so many communities in the city of Richmond. And we've got to do it differently. I think in 2020, the pendulum swung on community perceptions about police, and frankly, with good reason, right? Like our police across the country were doing some really crazy stuff. But this pendulum has got to swing back, because the answer is not let's get rid of police. The answer is that we need to equip and train police to be community police, to have relationships and trust and be present in those communities. And we need a mayor who's going to support that. We need to fill the 30% vacancy rate that our police department and every police department across the country is struggling with. Every corner I go to in the city, people say, safety. I want to just feel safe in my community. Part of that is about police, but not entirely. And so it really does come to these root issues of poverty and opportunity that we've simultaneously got to address. The last thing I'll say is that all right,
Appreciate you not having me come on out and stop you at the 10. It's a 10, man. You got it.
It was zeros.
Take your 10 seconds back.
Man.
Okay.
You got 10 seconds.
Yeah, can I? Okay, sure. I mean, the last thing I'll say is that we really do need to address root causes and bring communities together. I think Michelle's comment about the village has really resonated deeply. So,
thank you.
Some of you in this room might be familiar with risk, and I think for me, one of the things they've advised us and trained me over the last couple years has been about GVI, group violence interactions, and making sure we're focusing on getting involved and getting in front of with relationships with those who might be on the cusp of creating a problem that changes their trajectory of their life. They might be truant, they might be constantly not being in school or having other issues. There are warning signs across all of our community partners that understand there are kids at risk of doing the wrong thing. And while we focus on the crisis we have today, we need to make sure we also think about, while we support those students and implement those types of programs, we also look at the things that help prevent and avoid that conflict happening for that child. It goes back to after-school programs, sports, athletics, making sure every neighborhood has libraries, parks, community facilities, fields for basketball, tennis, and why not, pickle and paddleball. And for me, the thing we need to think about is every time we can positively engage a child in an interaction with others, it's going to be benefiting them for their growth and development. It gives them something to go back to school tomorrow for. Because for me, that's what I think is the most impactful thing we can support holistically, is making sure that child does not have to go down the pathway of that. The other outcome I think we need to focus on is time we invest in the neighborhoods that are public housing. We can no longer let those just be the public housing neighborhoods. We need to wrap them around with the services around them. And we're doing such things in the East End with looking at Lux Field and looking at other facilities around it, but it needs more. We need to focus on zoning those for development, focusing on bringing them the jobs and storefronts for early childhood development opportunities, after-school programs, and sports and athletics.
Thank you.
One of the things in Vic's question was about children. It is staggering that in this country today, it is more likely for a child to be killed in an incident of gun violence than in a car crash. That is an astounding fact. I was knocking doors in Southside the other day, and someone pulled over and opened up their window and said, "I need to tell you a story about my spouse and kids," someone who lost a spouse and children to gun violence. All while we have Governor Youngkin vetoing common sense gun safety bills. There are things we can do in the city, and here are some concrete things you can expect from me. First is the single largest investment in GVI that has ever been done. Second is creating an Office of Gun Violence Prevention within the mayor's office. That shows proximity, it shows importance. Those are two things that we can do immediately to start to address this tragic issue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to functionality of City Hall. We have just two or three questions, but I do want to save time if the candidates are all right answering a few questions that were submitted to me from the audience. Okay. Ms. Mosby, we're going to start with you. Please tell us about your plan to, one, provide open and transparent communication between City Hall and citizens, and two, improve the communication and citizen access of city departments.
That's an easy one.
Love it.
It is, because first and foremost, it's changing the culture of City Hall. We have to change the culture. I worked for Verizon for over a decade, and they believed in customer service. I believe in customer service. I believe that the people of Richmond, when you walk into City Hall or you call City Hall, you should be able to have a customer-focused experience. You should be able to have accuracy in your billing. These things should be a given. And so I will work diligently. I am committed to walking in the door, changing the culture of City Hall, excellence in services. The people of Richmond, we are going to be known, like CNN said today, for culture, art, and a phenomenal City Hall, because I believe that the people of Richmond deserve that. Effective, efficient, timeless services. You can expect systems, technology that provide accuracy and department interaction for efficiency and better time management. I'm all in on this one, y'all, because the people of Richmond deserve it. I want you to be able to go into City Hall, call City Hall, go online, and it's such a customer-focused experience that you give us a 10 plus rating because it's working for you.
Thank you.
We're currently in an environment of very low trust in government and city government, government writ large, and we've got to do a lot of work to restore that trust. You know, I think there are a lot of big deals that didn't happen in the city because communities didn't feel like they were a part of those. Communities didn't feel like they had the opportunity to provide feedback or input or shape the decisions that City Hall was making. And we've got to bring that back, right? There was a time, not even that long ago, 20 years ago, where community associations all in neighborhoods across the city had a direct line to City Hall. They had input on decisions that were made. They had input on policies. And we've got to restore that. We've got to restore democracy, people's engagement in their neighborhood associations and in the political processes that City Hall relies on. And that's going to rebuild trust over time, and it's going to take work. I think the other piece of this is ensuring that the basic functions like HR, like finance, like permitting, actually serve and respond to the needs of people. And this means that we've got to have leadership that comes in, ensures that that's a priority, and takes a people, process, and technology lens on each of those units of city government. Are the people here oriented towards the customer? Is the process easy for the customer to engage with and thinking about that end user's experience? And is the technology taking advantage of what exists now to actually make the interaction with City Hall a 2024 experience?
Thank you.
All right, so 2015, I was an employee in City Hall, and I won an award for the city of Richmond, and it was the Governor's Kovitz Award for innovative use of open data. That was 2015, and I left the next year to run for office. Guess what stopped? Open data. The focus of open data is making sure you can trust that all the things that happen throughout government operations is transparent, accountable, accessible for anyone to digest. And for me, that's one of the biggest things I did throughout my career, was focusing on that while in City Hall. But we've lost that. And it takes a visionary leader from mayor top down to realize everything we do in every department, every agency, every worker should be seen as accountable for all of you. And to me, restoring that in focus of operation every day is the first thing I'll do in office. The other thing I'm proud of is later this year, if you haven't heard already of participatory budgeting, the People's Budget of Richmond, I helped start that in 2019. It took 5 years to get here, but it's launching this year. It's going to be putting money in your hands, $3 million, in fact, to invest in your community as you want to. You want a park bench, you want a street light, you want a swing set, you want to have a merry-go-round, you want to see something fixed in your neighborhood. This is your chance to come together and spend your tax dollars where you can see the benefit tomorrow. These are the things that just start to build that and restore the trust in your city government. And for me, that's the biggest thing we have to do. It's not just with businesses and the developer community, but it's you. You need to know that your city hall is going to be working for you accountably and accessibly every single day, and I'll make sure you see that from my office every single day as mayor.
Thank you.
You know, I've spent the better part of my career helping create change in large organizations, and it's not really the job of the person at the top of the organizational chart to wave a magic wand and show up and solve problems. It's the job of the person at the top of the organization to partner with the people in the building. We actually have a very exciting moment in City Hall. We have an opportunity to link arm in arm with 4,000 hardworking people and say, how are we going to work together to change the path that we've been on? I've been really fortunate to get to know a lot of folks in and around City Hall. Everyone there wants to win. No one wants to show up and have a challenging day at the office. No one wants to show up and deliver poor services. But they're stymied by challenging systems and management that has not enabled them to do their job. We have a genuine opportunity to change that. And we have a framework for management to partner with the folks who work in the building under a new series of collective bargaining agreements that the city is under. So I'm actually very excited about the opportunity to deliver change in City Hall, not because that's what the mayor is going to do by banging the table, but because it's what's done by partnering with the people who do that work every single day. Thank you.
I will streamline and modernize City Hall operations to improve efficiency and responsiveness. We'll implement a comprehensive digital transformation strategy, upgrading our technology infrastructure and introducing user-friendly online platforms for city services. This will reduce procedural red tape, speeding up the process times and making it easier for residents to access their services and city services they need. Our administration will focus on transparency and accountability in city government. We'll implement an open data policy, making the city records and financial information easily accessible to the public. We'll also establish regular town hall meetings and create a citizens feedback system to ensure that the citizens and residents, that newcomers in the city, have the direct line of communication of the City Hall, and they have their voices heard on a daily basis. I'm committed to fostering a culture of excellence and collaboration within City Hall. We'll invest in professional development for our city employees, implement cross-departmental project teams to tackle complex issues, and establish clear performance metrics for all departments. By improving internal processes and communication, we'll create a more responsive and effective city government that will truly serve the people of Richmond.
Thank you. You guys, I'm not. All right, our next question is, as mayor, what will you prioritize in your first 100 days in City Hall and in our community? That's you, Danny.
First 100 days. Okay, so the role of the mayor is the CEO of the public serving agency. And so part of that role is to assess the leadership team you have and to build the best team possible. So that starts with an assessment of the CAO, bringing in the best talent we possibly can, and then looking division by division to ensure that we have the right leaders. And so really it's an assessment of leadership. Second, it is looking at what does it take to build the kind of culture that we've been talking about? And that is establishing expectations about the way that we communicate with residents and opening up City Hall and pathways for resident input. We want to make decision-making transparent and invite the public in. And we want to make sure that we are focused on outcomes. And so we've got to elevate the Office of Performance and Management. This is an office that actually exists in City Hall, We want to elevate that to the mayor's office to make sure that we have a clear sight line into each division's outcomes and how they're performing against those outcomes. I think we need to bring a chief transformation officer in because asking an already short-staffed division to do new things, to do more, to do it differently is really difficult. And so you need the outside look of a transformation officer and their staff to actually help support divisions in that journey. And we need to build a culture of success and accountability through performance management.
Thank you.
As an 8-year employee in City Hall and 8 years on City Council, I know how City Hall works and functions, and I've also seen exactly why it doesn't. And for me, I fought that as an employee in City Hall, pushing it to the limits of trying to drive innovation and change. But the culture sometimes doesn't want to change in that capacity. It is leadership, it is vision, it is working collaboratively. First 100 days in City Hall, we're going to focus on investing in the 3 biggest pillars I think that will change how we operate. One is technology. We're going to invest in the systems and processes we depend on to operate. They need to be modernized, streamlined, and connected. No more silos of departments deciding what technology they use. This is for you. This is where we focus on you, the customer, and the experience you have working with City Hall to be available to you however you want to do it. If you want to come in person, great. We'll have a system that works for you perfectly. You want to do it on your phone? Perfect. You want to do it from your computer? Even better. For me, there's no limitation on how you interact with your government, and we need to make sure every department and agency does that. We need to invest in our people. We need to train people to make sure that they can meet the demands of what you're coming to ask them for. They need to help you every time. If it might not be their job, they know how to. Let's get them to be empowered to help you succeed and have a better day moving forward. Because who wants to go to City Hall to make a tax payment? It's already a hard point as it is. Let's make it the most positive interaction we possibly can do. The last thing is to be processes. We need to streamline the things that need to be automated. We need to make sure we get the things that are repeated and stop using paper. How many times do we have to use paper for the same form? Let's get rid of that and make sure we invest in the people to do that. Tax reforms, you can see lower property taxes as mayor. You will not see your taxes go up in my first year as mayor.
Thank you.
In Richmond today, if you have a question about your personal property taxes, it takes, on average, 118 days to get your question resolved. So we're talking about the first 100 days of an administration and what you want to accomplish. And right now, we can't deliver back to residents on a personal property tax question. I don't think there's a reason to sugarcoat. This is going to take a lot more than 100 days. Auditing and evaluating every single agency in the city and creating true, genuine performance goals for each of those groups in a partnership-oriented way, that's going to take time. You know, the exciting thing is it's never really been done. So we're going to get to do it, and we're going to get to work together, and we're going to develop some great new outcomes, and that's fantastic. We've got a lot of canvas to work with. I have every confidence that working side by side with people who work in the building, we can do that. I don't want to be the cold water guy. It is going to take more than 100 days. We can set the tone with accountability. We can work to start to come to consensus on what some of our goals are going to be. But we all know the challenges. These are real, and they are not short-term fixes. Thank you.
The first 100 days is vital. I want to ensure that we have transparency, that we audit to ensure that we are and have been operating in good and well integrity. I do want to increase the morality within City Hall and other departments. We definitely need to support our employees and make sure that they are well equipped, career development, ensuring that they do know, in fact, what they are supposed to do within their purview. Also, within the first 100 days, I'd look to effectively draft a policy that will ensure that our elders will not lose their homes due to property tax. I believe that once you reach a certain age, you should not struggle and you should not have to bend pins and needles to figure out how you're going to continue to keep your home and to build your legacy. I do believe that we are able to support the support. I look to enact a stipend program that will help nonprofit organizations receive funding, and they do not go through the bureaucracy of not being able to obtain that funding when they are the ones truly doing the work. We will have to prevent individuals coming from the outside that can write procurement very well, that they make it sound good, but truly they are not doing the work. That leaves our communities empty, that leaves the doors open, and that increases gun violence. That increases hunger.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Mosby?
Evaluating departments, starting with my CAO, who will be the closest person to me, evaluating CAO, department heads, making sure that our technology is up to date. I am not sure why technology has had the issues that it's had. I don't understand the stop, because again, technology is working all around us. And so I have a nonprofit, I believe in best practices. So if best practices says that someone else is doing a thing, you can go over and you can get the thing and you can make the thing work for you. And so it's looking at technology and making sure that it is up to date so that the people of Richmond and our bills are being paid and their inaccuracy. Not only is it looking at our department heads, evaluating departments, looking at our technology, but really having real dialogue with the staff itself. I want to have a conversation with our staff. A long time ago, I said to our mayor, we need to have a survey box on the floor, where people can at least say, hey, this is how I'm seeing this thing to go. And so I'd like to have something so that the staff are able to have a conversation with the mayor. A lot of times they don't get that opportunity to have the conversation with the mayor. And so things don't change from the bottom up, they stay top down. And so I want to make the shift, the culture change. The culture change in City Hall would change many things in our city.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mosby. Thank you. And with that, we are going to move into questions from our audience and that were submitted online. I've done my best to condense them all into the same subject area. And so the first one is going to go to you, Andreas. What is your vision for a multi-module, well-connected Richmond region that does not rely solely on cars for transportation and improving transit access across our city?
Well, as someone who frequently rides the bus and rides my bike to work and walks our neighborhoods, multimodal access for our city is important for everybody. For me, I think it starts with really looking at how we're going to connect the future of our city, organized around how we connect jobs and workforce development for employment, as we build housing and economic activity across our city, and making sure that we're doing that for equitable access to the careers and completely transforming the training needed to get in those jobs for every individual across our city. And for me, building upon that is going to be also supporting how that housing is meeting their economic needs, but more importantly, the services around them. Is it near a grocery store? Is it near a park? Is it near an opportunity for employment? Is it near the things they need to have a better quality of life? And if not, we're not supporting the holistic aspect of that. People should be able to walk safely across our streets. In Southside, there are places that have no bus stops. On sidewalks, there's dirt. And for me, that's undignified and unacceptable. And for me, we need to make sure we focus on equitable access for everybody across our city. That's why we need to invest in the neighborhoods that need transit, that need housing opportunities, they need that storefronts for that grocery store, they need that access to that child care, they need the access to all the things that we see in other parts of the city need to be brought to all corners. As mayor, one of the biggest things I'm going to focus on is where do we start? The master plan outlines priority growth nodes. Each growth node is where we should put our affordability, we should put our transit, safe walkability, accessibility for everybody. I don't care what your mobility preference is. We need to make sure it's seen as a process and access for everybody.
Thank you. And Harrison, before you go, just let the audience know, candidates, we'll do one more at 1 minute, and then you all will be able to provide closing statements. I appreciate you all staying and working with us through this.
Sure. First, I'd like to applaud Councilman Addison for the work that he's consistently done over many years to be a champion for multimodal transportation. It's fantastic that we've had someone on City Council doing that work. And I think that work continues. We all know the issues. GRTC needs to remain fare-free. As the Fall Line Trail comes to our community, we need to make sure it's not leaving parts of the city left out. We need to ensure that we are expanding the routes available on GRTC. We need to make sure that for the at least 20% of Richmonders who don't have reliable access to a car, they have opportunities to walk, bike, or ride mass transit to get to where they need to go. You know, transportation is a much more fundamental issue than it gets credit for. If we don't address transportation, so much of the other work that we do, it's not even accessible to people. So unless and until that's addressed in a way that's equity focused, we're not going to get to where we need to go. You can count on me to be a champion for investments in multimodal transportation across the city, and also continue to build partnerships with our region as we all look and see things like the Pulse being extended into Henrico County and other such initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with the transportation, I do look at, we could create hubs for each district where some individuals need personalized transportation, not only just for individuals with disabilities, but individuals who are willing to commit to transportation allowance or expense that will aid them into being personalized for their transportation and employment. I definitely look at expanding GRTC in the other counties with understanding that individuals will travel with comfortability, but also while they're waiting for the transportation to arrive, they have seating, they have shelter, so that they're not in the rain. I mean, imagine working all day long, 10 to 12 hours a day, and just to go out and waiting for a bus, and you just pour it down on, or you in a scorching heat. That's very deterrent. So I definitely look to increase different initiatives that will allow individuals more personalized access for hub employment transportation. So pretty much, I definitely see that the way we can do that is provide additional service into the department, specifically for that transportation add-on.
Thank you. Ms. Mosby?
As mayor, I will make sure that our transportation is in modes that are going to ensure better quality of life for the people of Richmond. As president, we transformed the Pulse, the BRT. We had not had that type of a bus service, regional cooperation, federal, state cooperation to get BRT so that our people could have an opportunity to workforce in our counties. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing to expand. We know that BRT is headed up to Chesterfield Town Center, and that was the work of council, as president of council, working with our regional partners to ensure that bus rapid transit did not just become a thought process, but that it is a regional cooperation project to ensure that people are getting to the places that they need to get to and workforce opportunities. And so I will continue that as mayor.
Thank you.
I think we have a really interesting opportunity right now because of the way that low-income families have been pushed into the counties. The counties are more receptive to a mass transit conversation than they ever have been. And so I think so much of this is regional collaboration, regional partnership. How do we get our region to invest in expanding the footprint for GRTC? That's a huge focus, and ideally to keep it fare free, right? Like that is such an area of access for so many residents in our city who rely on that transportation. And then as we talk about the multimodal part of this, as with everything we talked about, and my approach to leadership has been one of deep listening to community, and we really need to work with communities that want to slow traffic down, that want more bike lanes, that want to slow car traffic, because there's so many places where we've already seen unsafe, we've seen pedestrian deaths, and we can actually address that. I think about Mayo Bridge as a very recent example where we have the opportunity to redesign a bridge and make it not only aesthetic attraction, but a place that people can walk and bike and fish from and be a community meeting space while slowing traffic on that corridor, which is a nightmare to try to walk down if you've ever tried to do it. So I think it is a vision and regional collaboration, but also prioritizing what a community wants in their neighborhood.
Thank you. We are on our last question, and then we'll close out. And we'll give a minute for this one. It's going to be a little bit shorter. You all have talked a little bit about it throughout your answers, but we all know in order for our city to succeed, each district must be able to succeed. And so with that, what is a specific plan that you have, if elected mayor, for the south side of Richmond? It's gonna be.
I think we all know what needs to be done. We can't accept that as the city grows, we continue to invest in some areas and not in others. Southside, I've heard the feedback over and over again. We need full service grocery stores. We need roads. We need roads that are properly maintained, not watching Monument Avenue get repaved again while there are thoroughfares in the south side that haven't been repaved in years. We need access to entertainment options and places for people to spend time. The simple commitment that I can make is you're gonna find me spending time in every corner of our community as a candidate and as your mayor. I am not going to only show up in certain parts of the city. I think you demonstrate a lot as a person about where you show up and who you spend time with. And you can count on me to show up, be a good listener, and advocate for, as Richmond grows, we make sure no one is left behind.
First and foremost, we need to clean up Southside from Corrigan up Hall Street, going towards 32nd Street. I mean, it's daunting to see individuals sleeping on the steps of what used to be a church. You know, it's sad to see individuals coming from and crawling from beneath the crawl space of buildings that's vacant. You know, we need to clean up those streets by helping those individuals with resources, cleaning up the streets by allowing them to become citizens and giving them a humane opportunity. We do need to have health food markets like Elwood Thompson, another one, Trader Joe's. We need to have those in the community, not just grocery markets that's going to sell food that is hazardous to your health. We don't need to go backwards. We need to go forward. Also, we need to increase the parks and rec in the South Side. We need to give opportunities in the community and resources.
Thank you.
My friends, I am a Southsider. Yeah, yes. And so I'm just going to talk about a few things. The port traffic has skyrocketed since I was president. 4 years. I only spent 4 years. A leader that can continue to expand and serve the people of Richmond throughout the port. Bus rapid transit is now, again, discussions of Richmond Highway. We made the first investment through Affordable Housing Trust Fund to build 3-bedroom, 2.5 townhomes in the 9th District. We purchased and created a community center on the south side of Richmond, and we continue to budget for a state-of-the-art facility, and the plans are in motion for that today. We began conversations for the Starbucks on Hull Street and the growth by Haynes Furniture. We fully funded schools, and we built 3 new schools in the south side. And I will continue to fight for the south side of Richmond. I am a South Sider. I made a choice to live on the south side, and I will continue to fight and move for the south side of Richmond.
Thank you so much.
All of those things. No, I mean, you know, I think Michelle nailed it. I mean, she knows the South Side better than everybody. She's grown up there, and the only thing that I would add is that we do that in a way that honors the people who live there, right? You look at what's happening in Manchester, which is great for the city. We're bringing density, we're bringing more apartments, we're bringing more people into the city. But unless we are super thoughtful about the impacts of that on the long-term residents of those community, you know, the South Side is going to look like what pockets of the North Side have become. And so I think that those same drivers to preserve racial and socioeconomic diversity have to be put in place. Policies and investments to really make sure the South Side is protected from that kind of development, but make sure that we're infusing it with development.
Thank you.
In February 2022, I'm the Land Use, Housing, and Transportation Committee Chair for Council. I introduced a Southside Economic Development Plan from all the studies we've been given for the last 5 years. It sat there for a little while. I put in some legislation because I want to focus on the zoning that we do in north of the river, like in my district, to make sure it's done the same way in Southside. Because here's why. There should be no choice of where we put high-frequency transit. It should be yes, on Hull, on Midlow, on Richmond Highway, and even on in other neighborhoods too. Because you know why? It's that important. There's no deciding between which neighborhood gets it. It's yes. And for me, we need to think big about what we do because transit is the anchor for development. If we want to get to Southside Plaza to be an anchor for the South Side for access to all the things it could become, and we put some rejuvenation in that area, it's going to take connecting downtown to Southside Plaza all along Hull Street, revitalizing every single block, every single corridor, respecting history while also building new. That's the plan we got to focus on, is putting investment where it matters most in every single neighborhood so they can see the change that they all deserve and have been asking for decades.
Thank you. We're done. You answered all the questions. So now we're going to move into closing statements. I invite you to stand up. You have a minute to give some closing remarks. We're going to start off with you, Harrison, and come back down this way.
Thank you all so much for having me. I'd like to address one local issue that did not come up in this conversation that is unfortunately now a local issue, and that is we need a mayor who is a champion for reproductive health and reproductive rights. Today is the second anniversary of the falling of Roe versus Wade, a tragic day for our country, and not just for women in our country, but for people everywhere, because rights deprived from one group impacts everyone. There are 2 Planned Parenthood centers here in Richmond, and our next mayor needs to be someone who champions access to those locations. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to have been before you tonight. I hope you all will come introduce yourself, learn more about me. I invite you to visit our website, rodayforrichmond.com. I'd love to hear from you. Please join us and volunteer. Thank you so much.
I want to thank everyone for coming out here tonight, showing your support, your dedication for community, and upholding our democracy. It is important. I do want to also let you know, in regards to the financial accountability within the city of Richmond, we have to be transparent. We have to show budget allocation so that we can track and know where the funds are going so we can better allocate those funds. As someone who lived in Richmond, I'm 34 years old, I was an orphan, but I want to be the example that you can make it. The children and the youth can make it. We have ideas. At times we may not be able to make it sound glorious or outstanding, but we do have a plan. You just have to give us and the youth opportunity to express those and actually do what we know that will work for us. So when it comes to One Richmond, I'm looking forward to that as mayor upcoming to this next fiscal year. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you all so much for coming out this evening. I'm Michelle Mosby. I'm running for mayor. You can expect a responsive government. You can expect effective, efficient government. I have worked on city council for 4 years, and in those 4 years, I have been able to transform our transportation system. I have been able to bring our school board and our electeds together, build schools and fund schools. I have been able to make real change in the city of Richmond. And so I'm asking you to take this moment in time and hear what you've heard, but also go back and look at the proven record. Look at the proven record of the leaders that are in front of you, and at that time, make your decision. And don't wait till November 5th, September 20th. I need you to get out and vote. I need Michelle Mosby to be our next mayor. I have proven that I can lead this city, and I'm asking you to give me that opportunity on September 20th through November 5th, and let's change our Richmond narratives together.
Through this election, you guys are hiring the next leader of the city. You are hiring the CEO of a $2.8 billion public serving agency. In 15 years of executive leadership experience in local and state government, I've hired a lot of people, and my interviews are about 10% what are you gonna do? It's important to hear what people's vision is, and 90% what have you done, because what you've done is the best predictor of what you will do. I led the Richmond City Health Department and made it a national award-winning health department. We built 8 clinical sites in 8 of the lowest income neighborhoods in the city. I merged the Richmond and Henrico health departments under one umbrella, creating the Richmond-Henrico Health District. I helped lead first the region and then the state through the COVID pandemic, making Virginia starting at 50th out of 50 states and propelling us to the top 10 most vaccinated states in the nation. And then I ran a $2.6 billion agency at the state level as commissioner of the Department of Social Services. And that's the track record I want to bring to our city.
Thank you.
I don't envy you because you've heard tonight 5 amazing people that have incredible passion for the future of our city, and they've stepped up to run for this seat. This is the most public job interview ever. And for me, I'm excited because I get to share the stage with these 4 individuals to share what we see as the future, what's the potential and possible. And for me, that's what excites me, is because I've worked for 16 years and showing up in every day, and I've done small things, and I've tried to do big things, and I've seen why things can happen. I've also seen things that don't happen. And for me, what you want to see is my experience applied in the opportunity of leading as a city mayor. And for me, what I want to bring to you is an opportunity to see how we're going to break down silos in government. You're going to see us break down the generational cycle of poverty. We're going to see us invest in the neighborhoods that haven't seen a shovel in the ground or a crane in the air ever. You're going to see children given opportunity to develop into the kids that they can be and the adults that they should be, because we're going to make sure that they have all the resources that I had growing up as a kid. If you believe this vision for our city, check out my website to see more about me and what my vision are, andreasaddison.com. I look forward to talking to you the next 4 months.
Thank you. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Awesome. Again, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Give our candidates a round of applause, but also give yourselves a round of applause because it was hot. So we're going to invite our candidates for a brief moment if we could just get a couple of pictures with you all. This is one of our first installments. We do want to continue these conversations as we move into the November election. So be on the lookout. Again, thank you. And I'm just going to cut it right there because I'm not going to stop you from getting to your cool cars. Would I be able to get